Good evening, everybody. So this is my video for Module 5 discussion over Chapter 7 and Chapter 8. So this time I actually read the whole instructions. I'm not going to be answering all the questions. I'm going to pick two from Chapter 7 and Chapter 8. So we'll dive right into it. First question is our text argues that popular culture transmits cultural messages that transcend individual cultures. Select one of the items our author would consider pop culture and engage with it. Name, describe it, and then discuss how it might be perceived. Messages about your culture and what the message might believe it transmits. And how do you believe someone who knows nothing about my culture would interpret your culture based solely on the item of popular culture? So I feel like there's two questions to this one. On the book on page 242, it defines pop culture as a collection of widely accepted messages, knowledges, practices that represent cultural popular values, attitudes, and beliefs. Um, I mean, this is day to day type of stuff. One of the things that they talk about is like your iPhone, Twitter, Old Navy, Skype, football, American football. If you're pretty much outside of here, any big bands, athletes. Game of Thrones is a huge one for a long time. Disney to this day is huge across the world. Um, so I think I'll take on the Disney piece because I did mention this on my reflective paper about how Disney is pretty much known across the board through everywhere. So, if you guys don't know, there's Disney sites in Japan, two of them now in China, and there's one in France. They're about to build one in England, I believe, and then there's Disney World, and then Disney California, right? So there are sites across the across the globe, basically, and within different cultures outside of the United States. So when I was in Japan, I actually got to enjoy Tokyo Disney, and that was completely different than my experience here in the United States, right? But it's still there. Um, People know about it. People are in tune with it. Um, the other big one that I think about right off the bat is Fast and the Furious. That was kind of across the world type of things. So, um, and then the second part would be how do you believe someone knows nothing about your culture would interpret your culture based solely on that item of popular culture. Um, so living in Brazil, funny enough, one of the schools out there was a school not affiliated with Disney, but they were named Walt Disney. But that was kind of the symbol to the United States, right? Everything you saw, it's like the dreamland type of thing. So, um, but kind of forgot where I was going with that. But sorry, yeah, kind of lost my train of thought. So I apologize for that. It happens when it's 10:30 at night. Second question: what are the three primary groups in your life? How do you differentiate them from the secondary group? What are the similarities, difference in groups? How would the author explain them and respond and share at least, as you respond, share at least one of the groups form, develop specific, discuss the stages of development. So there's three groups that the author talks about. And I want to say that towards the end of chapter, um, it kind of goes actually over a lot of the sections in here, groups and intercultural communications. It talks about that's section 3.3, diverse groups 3.4, and then it really dives into different groups 3.5 on page 252. I refer this again in my reflection paper, being in the military, right? there's different groups within it, diverse group of people, different people in different leadership roles. But mainly, going back to the three ones, there's a primary, secondary, and tertiary groups. So your primary, the author basically says these are the people that you're absolutely 100% comfortable with. They know more about you than they know that you know about themselves. Mostly these are your family, your spouses, your kids, so on and so forth. Secondary group are usually co-workers. Depending what your relationship is, it could go either way, right? Between those two groups, but secondary group knows a little less. Tertiary groups are kind of like your acquaintances, people you barely talk to, but there's some type of relationship there and some type of communication. So for me, primary groups is definitely my family, um, kids, wife, uh, mom, dad. Secondary group is definitely my coworkers, but they're kind of in that weird fine line between primary and secondary, only because I spend a lot of the time at work versus being at home. Tertiary is basically almost non-existent, unfortunately, because I'm doing three different things, you know. So jumping into chapter 8. Uh, oh, sorry, going back to the talking about discussing the stages of development, picking one. I go to my secondary one a lot because we're constantly having people coming in and out of the unit. So there's always the stages of the initial stage, the shock and awe, and then there's the storming, the the forming, the norming. This is the type of things that they're different. They're categorized different stages of somebody brand new coming into that unit or somebody leaving and how it disrupts the whole team basically and how we communicate. You could use one person to communicate better with somebody else, but now there's no bridger there anymore. So now you're going to have to, become that bridger and be a little more uncomfortable with that situation. Mhm. So chapter 8 talks about what tactics and strategies people typically use in social media and how they're similar to or different from how we communicate in person. Be specific, cite the text. Use examples in your personal life. So, social media, I have my own thoughts about social media, um, especially nowadays. But from my understanding of what my experience or is that people tend to communicate a little differently. Some use text, some other people just show emojis or they do like abbreviations. So, and then that kind of, depending on the person, it translates and how they actually communicate. They're very short, they use slang, so on and so forth. So it can be a little confusing. Sometimes I even switch it up a little bit just so I'm kind of more in tune with some of the guys I work with, being that some of them are um, newer generation type. Um, but communicating person to person is the same. I try to be the same type of person, whether I'm online or offline, posting stuff. I have good conversations, bad conversations, either way. Sorry, I'm kind of scrolling through this trying to find that so I can actually cite it. Um, but examples of personal life in my response. I mean, like just today, I talking to somebody who I usually would call. They didn't pick up, so I just go straight to text, or vice versa. But there's people that don't like that at all, so I just call them or send them an email, things like that. But all in all, you're gonna get the same do card either way. Second, discuss what it means to be affiliate. Demonstrate affiliation according to the text. How do you demonstrate affiliation face to face and online? No more demonstrations similar and different. So I finally thought, nope, maybe. Nope. Sorry, guys. Really sorry about that. Sorry for the awkward long pause. Basically, affiliation is like who do you identify yourself with, right? Um, or how do you self-identify with a certain group of people? Um, so for me, I kind of I have when it comes to social media and myself, my actual self. So like me being myself is military. Everybody that knows me personally, they know I'm in the military. When it comes to social media, Facebook is the same thing. It's the same way. The only time I change it up is through Instagram, and that's only because there's a lot more people there that are more fitness trainer minded than I am versus the military. So the reach over here is a little different. However, the mentality is still the same. The affiliation is still the same, and I do that with jujitsu too. I try to keep those things kind of separated in that sense, but the conversations, the mentality, everything is pretty much the same. I just don't like advertising to a bunch of people that I'm in the military. But that's just my own personal preference on that aspect. But outside of that, I'm still sharing the same thoughts and conversation with a lot of different people. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty much hit all of the stuff in there. So hopefully I get to hear from you guys. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye.